Alrighty, welcome everyone. I'm Teeaboo, and today is a sad day. So it's Thursday now. And as you know, Banana Fish comes out on Wednesdays. Which means that the next episode goes up on Patreon for early access on Wednesdays. Or it's supposed to. Thank you, Sarah, for letting me know. By just being like, hey, where's the Banana Fish early access episode? It's nowhere is where it is. It's gone. It's lost in the ether. It's poof. This morning I was running out of disk space, and I thought that I had already uploaded it. It's in my conversion history. I rendered it. I converted it, I made a thumbnail for it, and I didn't upload it. But I thought I did. And so I deleted it. And not only did I delete the converted file, I deleted the full quality rendered file, and I deleted the original reaction files. Everything. I really thought I uploaded it. So, this video is, you'll probably notice that it's a little bit long for just an apology. So here's what I'm gonna do. I don't think it's going to be worth your time, to have me go back through the entire episode and rewatch it, just for the sake of doing so. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to go through my notes in detail, the same way that I normally do in the post-episode discussion. And there was quite a bit that I wanted to discuss for this episode. And there were a number of scenes that I wanted to actually go through, and that I did go through frame by frame and talk about in the post-episode discussion, which I already did. So what I'm going to do is redo the post-episode discussion. If you are just watching Banana Fish along with me, then I suggest that you go and watch the episode first. Because I'm not going to show the whole thing or react to the whole thing, because, well, I've had sort of a similar thing happen in the past, and I decided at that point that I was never going to fake anything, no matter what. And so I'm not going to do that, and the alternative to going back through it is, or like to pretending to react to things, would be to sit here silently, because nothing would really surprise me in the episode or anything like that. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to go through it and I'm going to talk about it in depth. And I'll scroll through the episode as we go and just talk about things as I see them happen. So this will be shorter in terms of the actual reaction stuff, but a bit longer in terms of discussion. I'll talk more in depth about everything. That way there is an episode 5 video up, but it is not going to be the reaction that I wanted it to be, which is really unfortunate because I personally thought it was a pretty good one. So that is fucking sad. Really just... And I tried using a disk recovery tool to try and get it back, but it's unrecoverable. It's been overwritten. Okay, well, if you haven't seen the episode, go watch it now, and then come back to this point in the video. Okay? Okay. Because I'm not going to put the whole thing in here. If you have seen the episode and you're coming back, awesome. Great, let's talk about it. Let's talk about this ep. Because it was a good ep. It was quite a good ep. I liked this episode. I'm just reading through my notes really quickly. So let's do a quick overview of what happened in the episode and what stood out to me. And I'm just going to do this just looking at my notes, and then we'll scroll through the episode and stop at scenes that I wanted to talk about in particular, because there were a few, and they were pretty cool. So, Ash gets out on bail. Eiji is thrilled by this. There's an interesting conversation between the lawyer and Max. The lawyer says, "Oh, he seems like a nice young man." And Max is like, "Yeah, seems. He tricked me too. He's not that nice, and he's not that naive. He's a gang boss, and he's a gang boss for a reason. He deserves some respect. He should be treated like an adult." And that's echoed later by Lee. I think it's Lee, the head of the Chinese mob. I assume they're Chinese, because Shorter is the introducer, and they have a slightly different character design, where their eyes are drawn a little bit differently, which is common in Japanese depictions of Chinese people, which is interesting. Max, or not Max, the lawyer, Max lets the lawyer know that he told Ash about his brother. And meanwhile, Charlie and the others are trying their darndest not to let anything slip, but Ash is sort of prodding them just to sort of mess with them. Like, "Hey, I really want to go see my brother. How does that sound? Can you take me to my brother?" And Charlie's like, what do I say? I found it interesting that the lawyer guy tries to call Charlie to tell him that Max told Ash already, and when he tries to call him, it's interesting that we see his phone's interface, and it's an actual Android phone interface, as far as I can tell. I mean, I have an Android phone, and that's what my Android phone looks like when it's in the middle of a call. So that was interesting. Ash pulls Charlie's gun, points it at him, and he's sitting in the passenger seat of the car. And Eiji takes action. He moves himself up to the front seat and drives away with Charlie and I don't remember his name. The guy, Eiji's boss guy, sort of hanging onto the car, and of course they fall off. The gun also falls out, so they don't have a weapon. And Ash tells Eiji that he should probably not be coming along with him. And Eiji's like, "No, I refuse to give up." Okay. We get a cool audio track that reminds me of Black Violin. We switch to Dino and Asa to talk about some stuff in the greenhouse, which is gorgeous. It's just such a great location. And Arthur says a line that I thought originally was a direct quote from something. "A great man can brook no rival." It's not quite a direct quote from anything, but it is extremely similar to a line from the book of Joshua in the Old Testament. Something, "For he is a jealous God and will tolerate no rivals." So that interested me. And I do think that it was an attempted reference. Just because the translation was a little bit smoother as "a great man can brook no rival," but "he will tolerate no rivals" means the same thing. Maybe it's not a direct reference. Just a similar concept. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. We get the reveal that Banana Fish is not, in fact, a person, but is a drug. And you'll see in the thumbnail me going like, "Yeah!" That's because at that point when it was revealed that Banana Fish is a drug, I was like, "Oh, I called it!" Oh, so sad that that's gone. So Ash and Eiji go and they meet up with Shorter. And there's a really interesting scene, which we will go through, where Eiji is framed in the same shot as Shorter and Ash's secret handshake type deal, which is kind of interesting. The way he's looking at their handshake with, it's not quite envy. Like envy has a negative connotation to it, but I mean envy, but without the negative connotation. I don't know the word for that. Like it's something that he wants to be a part of. He wants a piece of that kind of relationship, that kind of friendship and bond. And he's sort of seeing how Ash's gang functions and how his friendships function. And he it's not really admiration either. What would the word be? Powerthesaurus.org. Envy. Covetousness, greed, crave, yearn. He yearns for that. There we go. That works. He longs for that kind of friendship. There we go. He yearns for it. He longs for it. That's pretty good. That doesn't have the negative connotation that envy does. Because there's no indication that he envies. We find out that the woman in the restaurant is Shorter's sis, and she has an interesting conversation with Charlie, where it is revealed that the cops, as they often are in fiction and in reality... Okay, it's just a weird bird. Are overwhelmed, ineffective, and they can't... Their hands are tied by their lack of being able to prove anything about street-level gang violence and street-level affairs. They just can't prove anything, can't pin anything on anyone, and they don't have any evidence. So what can they do? And Charlie is just as frustrated as everyone else. Then we get some of that depth that I wanted on Eiji and his past, because I mentioned it before. There was this line that Eiji says to his boss guy, "Thank you for bringing me along with you. I really needed it at the time." And that sort of struck me as a setup for something that would be expanded upon later, and indeed it was. So he was a pole jumper, as we knew, and he broke something. He messed something up in his leg. It doesn't really matter what it was, but either it was a badly pulled tendon, or it was a broken ankle, broken something. He got hurt, and he couldn't jump. But it wasn't the injury that stopped him, not really, because we see him without the cast and in good condition, getting ready to jump, and then he sort of is gazing up at the bar and just can't do it. He just can't. So it's not that his ankle is broken, it's that his spirit is broken. His desire to act is broken. And so that's why he needed it. That's why he needed to get away and be somewhere else and have his mind taken off of it. But it's also interesting because Ash has inadvertently and indirectly caused Eiji to overcome that fear or mental block barrier to jumping, because he was put into that situation in the dead-end alleyway and with a rusty piece of pipe, and he jumped. He went for it. He overcame that internal struggle. So that was really cool. It's a pretty good setup. And it's a setup resolution in reverse, right? So it's a resolution that we didn't know occurred. It was just cool in the moment for him to jump, and it gave us the opportunity to get depth on Ash. And then we retroactively add in the context for Eiji overcoming himself as well. And it makes that scene all the more powerful, which is quite cool, and I quite like. Eiji's asleep. Ash comes up to him, tries to wake him up, and then puts a gun to his head. He doesn't really put it to his head. He sort of taps him with the barrel of it, but still, like, dude, please, don't do that. But gives him the gun, and we'll look at this scene later because it's quite a good one. And Eiji is framed with a painting behind him of cherry blossoms and cherry trees with some of the leaves off and some of the... Yeah, it's really cool. It's a really cool painting. And he sort of playfully, sort of childishly holds the gun and goes, bang! Which is cute, but also childish and a bit naive. It's almost like a toy. But he's of course aware that it's not a toy or anything, but he still is enamored by it, in the same way that he was by Ash's gun in the beginning, when we first meet him. But he takes up the gun. We learn that Lee has provided this hideout, and he's the head of, I assume, the Chinese mob. Because they talk specifically about taking nothing from other races and just wanting to fuck with Dino. But Ash sees through this. It's really that Lee is interested in what came between Dino and Ash. What could be so important and valuable that Dino is after Ash and Ash is running from Dino. He's just interested. He wants information. And if there's action, he wants a piece of it. And then we get some depth on Dino's operation. We find out just how fucked up it is. Because we knew that he was... Well, we didn't even know. It was heavily implied that he was into... or his operation included child pornography. But we didn't actually explicitly know that. We knew that Marvin was part of it. And we knew that Dino was sexually interested in Ash from a young age and brought him in from a young age. What we didn't know is that he has a hand in this place called Club Cod. A place that sells people. He is into human trafficking of runaway kids. And they do not live very long. These runaway kids. They are sold and they are used up quickly. So Ash is an exception. He is one of the few that has lived on, and that's sort of a testament to his ability and his desire to stay alive. Because we've seen that he's learned to accept what he must in order to survive and fight back when he can. And now he's fighting back. And it makes me wonder if perhaps Skip is a kid that Ash rescued from that fate. Quite possibly. But we don't know. But we do know that on the 15th of every month, Dino shows up at Club Cod. So, the plan is go to Club Cod, kill Dino. Nice. Good plan. Max gets out of prison. There's a really cool shot of the inside of a car while Max is driving. They acquire a semi-trailer truck from Lee. And at first I was sort of wondering, why do they need a semi? Are they carrying lots of people in the back? Are they carrying lots of stuff in the back? Unknown. And it never really gets shown. But it is visually useful because they do an awesome scene with Ash on top of the semi-trailer truck with a gun. Full Hollywood style. Yeah, really cool. But as he drives up to Dino, who is arriving at Club Cod, as he is driven up to Dino, there is a sniper in the window. A window on the side of the road. And I didn't quite like that. I didn't like that very much at all, because there was no setup for the sniper being there. And no real reason for him to be there. We never got any indication that Dino or his men suspected an attack was imminent or anything. And we got nothing that would suggest that having a guy with a scoped rifle in a nearby building looking out onto the street is normal practice for Dino's security. I would have been totally okay with this if, as I came up with this theory off the top of my head, or this way of fixing this scene off the top of my head while I was watching it and in the post-episode discussion, so I'll share it here. Before Dino gets out of the car, he shares a silent glance for a few seconds with one of his henchmen, who opens the door for him, of course. if you extend that scene by just a few seconds and you have the henchman, you have Dino say, "Is the area secure?" And the henchman says, "Yeah," and the guys are in place. Anything even a little bit along those lines. And it doesn't have to be explicit. It doesn't have to be, "Yes, and the snipers are ready," or anything like that. It just has to be some indication that security is heightened because they think that maybe they'll be attacked. We didn't get that. Just Arthur and his sniper dude are there because they're there and because they wanted it to be tense. And it works for tension. And I can see this as a directorial decision for preventing the audience from suspecting that the sniper will be there, because it's a shocking moment. Ash is doing cool stuff on the car, and then he gets hit in the shoulder, and we're like, where did the bullet come from? Who shot him? But I don't think it was effective enough to be worth creating a minor weirdness. It's just a little bit weird to have the sniper there. Anyway, I don't want to talk about it too much. It's not bad. It's bad. It is. It's really unfortunate. Yeah, there's just no indication. There's nothing that would lead us to understand why that sniper is there or why Arthur is there. The other thing they could do is they could have had Arthur and Dino have a quick conversation, or as part of the conversation that they had in the greenhouse, Arthur says something about, like, "Don't you think Ash is gonna come after you? He knows you go to Club Cod." And, just have Arthur say something like, "My guys will provide extra backup." Something. There's no reason for him to be there that we are told in the past. If there was and I totally missed it, let me know. And I'm open to hearing your thoughts on why they did it this way, but I think it was an oversight. I do, because that scene is just weird. It's a little bit weird, but that's fine. The rest, they're really strapped for time in this episode. Do they skip the OP? I think they skip the OP, but they definitely skip the ED, and they use an acoustic version of the ED over the end of the episode with dialogue occurring, which is really cool. And I really like the acoustic version of the ED. It's not as bumpin', but it's still really good. Anyway, one of Dino's guys comes up to Eiji and Shorter with a knife, and Eiji points the gun at him. And we'll go through this scene in detail. But we get a flash of wondering whether Eiji will pull the trigger, and then we see the guy get shot from, like, Eiji's perspective. So we don't know whether he's pulled the trigger, but we know that the gun has gone off. And then we turn back to them, and it's Shorter. Shorter has reached around and pulled the trigger for Eiji because he was hesitating. So it's sort of a half step for Eiji. He hasn't actually killed somebody directly, but he did hold the gun when it fired. But it was Shorter who pulled the trigger. So that's sort of an interesting thing, because we think, oh, did Eiji actually take that step and become a killer? No, not quite. Shorter pulled the trigger for him. Quite interesting. There's another scene that we'll go through when Ash is running around and the other guys are shooting at him, and he's shooting back. I was interested in that scene because we are specifically told earlier that Ash's gun is a .357 Magnum, and the other guys are clearly using automatic or semi-automatic pistols, so standard 9mm. And the sound that they use for the gunshots is different, which is quite nice. The pistols kind of go, the 9mm kind of go pa, pa, and the .357, the Magnum, kind of goes pow, pow. It's kind of a deeper, more resonant gunshot. So that was really cool and a nice little piece of depth and characterization there. Very cool. They escape. Ash says some stuff to Max about how it's none of your business and you should just leave it be, and gets himself slugged in the face for it, which is great. That's great. I really loved that scene because Ash is one of those characters who tries to do everything on their own. like, yeah, everybody stay out of my business, blah, blah, blah. And we, along with Max and the rest of them, are like, dude, shut up. They're in this with you. We're in this with you. Shut up. And so he punches him. It's great. And I think kind of builds their friendship a little bit more. Yeah, kind of good. And then we get the title, and it is From Death Till Morning. And I'll have to look it up again. But I found it interesting. It's a collection of short stories by name forgotten. From Death. It's not Till Morning, it's To Morning. It's by Thomas Wolfe, that's it. Yes. It's a collection of short stories. And there were some interesting quotes in it. So I read through the reviews on Goodreads instead of actually looking for like a summary or anything like that. And they said some interesting stuff. There are sentences here and there that are the most beautiful pieces of prose you will encounter. Long phrases, minute descriptions, and infinite epithets. Overall, what they say is that most of the stories are almost poetry in prose. They're lyrical in certain ways, and have inspired other lyrical prose writers like Kerouac, which is interesting to me. Yeah, one says, forget all the usual elements of fiction and dwell instead upon the style for its beauty, the phrasing, the rhythm. Read aloud to yourself. Yeah. And there are some beautiful quotes here. A moment of dark time, one of strange million-visaged time's dark faces. His heart, which had been brave and confident when it looked along the familiar vistas of the rails, was not sick with doubt and horror as it saw the strange and unsuspecting visage of an earth which had always been within a stone's throw of him, and which he had never seen or known. And he knew that all the magic of that bright, lost way, the vista of that shining line, the imagined corner of that small universe of hope's desire, was gone forever, and could never be got back again. It is lyrical, and it's rhythmic prose, but not poetry, not exactly, but beautiful. So that's pretty cool. Now, let's go through a few scenes. The first one that really struck me as interesting was our first scene of Eiji in this episode, and it's only about 30 seconds in. So we hear that Ash is going to be getting out. You're conditionally free. Ooh. What was that? Okay, I didn't stop recording. Good. I'm gonna mute, and I'll turn on audio when we need it. But we get this shot of Ash's face straight on, and then his gaze moves up to look us in the eye. He's looking at Mr. Scott, but he's looking directly at us. And then we match that to... Let's go frame by frame, because this is actually... It's a beautiful piece of sakuga. It is keyframed animation, and it is hand-done, and it is done by a very good character artist. I don't know who the character artist is, because I cannot find a listing for key animation on this project, which is unfortunate. I'll go through the credits later and see if I can read some of the moon runes. But if any of you know who did the key animation on this project, I would like to know, because I like looking up key animators on Sakakaburu. But we match this shot of Ash calmly looking at us and us finding out that he's going to be getting out with Eiji, and it's got quite a bit of really lovely characterization in this shot. What he reminds me of more than anything is a puppy who has just heard its master arrive, heard its master at the door and has just flipped out in a flurry of limbs, like, you know? That's what this shot with the bouncing hair and the sort of the stretchy perspective looks like to me. And it's really quite a difficult cut. So see, he's jumpy and he sort of clambers forward and brings himself up to meet the camera, and then he fills the same exact spot where we just had Ash. Let's go back. There's Ash. There's Eiji. See? Ding. Ding, ding, ding. Yeah. It's like a puppy. Like a puppy dog. A little hair bob. It's about 15 separate frames that I just counted. So, about half a second. A little less, because we're in 24, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16... 16 frames. Okay. So it's 2/3 of a second. This is a 24 FPS video, right? Media info. Yeah, 2397. Okay. So it's exactly 2/3 of a second. 16 frames of 24. And that 2/3 of a second does a ton to characterize Eiji. Right? He's a puppy. He's a naive, young, cute puppy who gets excited about stuff. It's cute. It's really cute character animation. And it works. It works wonders. Now, he's gonna go home, and then we switch to this Eiji, who's like, But, yeah, he's not having any of that. So, let's, skip a Rooney. We've got some Dino stuff. Lynx is out of the cage. We get the OP. Okay, so we do get the full OP. They weren't so strapped for time that they would remove that. We don't get the ED. Not as a separate thing. We get it as an acoustic overlay, which is cool. I also wanted to mention something. This guy, that guy, there, with the sort of blue strands in his hair and stuff. I assume that's a guy. Looks quite a bit like, that guy. Yeah, that guy. You know? Who we see in full color at some point in the OP, but I don't remember where. I wonder if they're the same person. Doesn't really matter. So, yeah, he tricked me. Ha ha ha. Righto. Eiji's happy that he's out. Yippee yippee yay. 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 Yep. This is some good character animation as well. Sort of bouncy. But it's only like 4 separate frames. Maybe it's 8. Yeah, about 8. And then this is the scene where Ash is sort of prodding Charlie. I want to go see him. And then Charlie's like, I can't. Max is running, and then we can see his phone interface. It could be an Apple interface. It's far enough away that it's hard to tell. But it really looks like a Samsung. Whatever. Doesn't really matter. I feel sick, yada yada. Steals his gun. Thank you very much. And then Eiji decides to drive. Later. Peace. And they zoom away. Ash tells him to get out of here. And, oh, right, this was interesting. So Eiji takes responsibility for everything, blames himself for everything, and Ash is like, dude, you had no clue. You're just a naive kid. I probably shouldn't have asked you to do this thing. You tried, and they followed you. It's not your fault, really. Just cut it out. Yep. Don't get in my way, etc. Good. Chinatown. Yes. Got the drug back. And we find out that, yeah, I'm a guy you can count on. I have something Ash doesn't. Ambition. Right. Fire and ice. Yep. That quote. Banana fish is no human. It's the name of a drug that will change the world. I wonder how. Whether it will change the world ground up or just be used as a tool to change the world by causing people to kill themselves. I don't know. Get some interesting stuff here with them being followed. Take this guy down. And where's the handshake? Yeah, no way. Yeah, again, back out shorter. You know, I'll do this myself. No, hell no. This is our problem. Let's work together. Fine. And boom. Bam. Handshake. And Eiji's just like, that was so cool. Do it again. Can I do it? Can I try? The little nose thumb is some excellent characterization. Because that's something that street dudes will do all the time. I may not look like it, but I've spent quite a bit of time with people on the street. Quite a bit. I was pretty deep into hip-hop scenes. I know, right? So, pole jumper, stuff like that. Yep. This whole scene, which is great, but it's nothing that I want to see and talk about as such. This scene, he taps him with the gun, freaks him out. You can see the sakura, the blossoms there. And it looks like that's a river there. With something floating on it, but it's hard to tell. And that's a famous painting, I think. The one with the mountains. They may both be, but I don't know. But it is just gorgeous with these rainbow beams coming in through the window. The gun, great perspective. And then that gorgeous hand-done painting in the background. So, Smith & Wesson 357, 3.5-inch barrel, so it's a snub nose with a quick load cartridge. So, Mystery. You see that his eyes are drawn a little bit differently. As I said, Japanese often draw Chinese people like that. I don't know why. Right, so they don't serve seafood, or don't just serve seafood, they sell living people. And we get the information that one of their customers is a senator. This is his 48th time. 48 kids, young boys around the age of 10 with blue eyes and blonde hair, so almost like Ash. We see all these kids up there. And I wonder if there are any Easter eggs in this group of kids. The only one that I thought was of potential interest was Jason Wong up in the top left corner, because shorter is Shorter Wong, and that guy could be shorter, but I don't know. Every 15th of the month, righto. Going back, blah blah blah, blip-de bloop. Max comes in, right. Place called Club Cod, and A will be there. Yep. this scene is of interest to me because the background is entirely CG. That is a CG background, and those are auto-generated CG pedestrians. And all of these cars are CG. This shot is extraordinarily expensive. There's a lot of work put into creating this street to drive down for this one scene. Now, how you normally do a scene like this is the way you do it here. You paint a background, or generate it, whatever, it doesn't really matter, but you paint a background, and then you move through it really quickly, like this. And you don't have to have pedestrians moving in that background, you don't have to have other cars there, nothing. This whole scene could have been shot this way, and it would have been fine. But instead, we get this pretty long, pretty drawn out shot of all these cars. And they're not all unique. There are some duplicates among the cars and some recolors, but it doesn't matter. There are enough of them, enough different models being used to make it look like a living street. And that is cool to me. And then, of course, the dashboard and all of Max are traditional, and they're just a flat matte cell that's placed over the CG background. Really quite cool. You normally wouldn't do this shot out the window. You wouldn't do it unless you were actually on a street and able to do this with an actual camera, you know? Like, this is very Hollywood filmmaking, to put the camera back here and have it pan this way. So the director was like, I want this shot. I want it, and I want it bad enough to put a big portion of the budget toward it. And they did. And it looks really good. It's obviously CG, but it's good. It's quite good. And they could have done the whole thing like this. But they didn't. Minimal number of men with him, doesn't want to scare his customers, etc. Yeah, and of course, Lee is just interested in what came between them. See if he can make some money off of it. Right, can't trust anybody. Righto. So we're like, okay, why do they need the truck? What's the purpose of this? I still don't know. Not really. So he arrives, and as I said, this scene right here, this is where there could be just a little snippet of anything to indicate that perhaps security is heightened. There are more people here than usual. There are snipers in nearby buildings. Anything. Doesn't have to be explicit, but anything. But instead, it's just bam, 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 Golzine walking with his men. And then, huh? They are completely surprised by this truck arriving. It's pretty surprising. I mean, it's a truck driving in the middle of a courtyard, like, and there's a dude on top of it with a gun. Ah! Now, this little piece of animation, I would venture a guess that this piece of animation was cheaper than the entire thing, this whole thing, from right here, starting this cut to, and we're zoomed out so we don't have facial features on Ash. He's sort of grayed out, and then we zoom in on him and we swap to a full definition sakuga shot. And most of the action, most of the motion is his clothes rippling in the wind and his hair rippling in the wind. And it's quite good. Look at that. They really got this effect on his hair going, so that it's just like... He points the gun, but all the motion comes from his clothing. And it's great. It's so good. And his hair. And this scene is also a lovely keyframe shot where we feel the impact of the bullet, which hits him from when you're like this, so from this side, his right? It hits him from his right, and because that's where we see that the sniper is later, so that hits him. He gets the impact from it, We don't really know how deep it is or whether it just grazed him. It looks like it just grazed his shoulder. Then as he's falling back, he fires at Dino, and we get realistic recoil for a revolver. And then basically the combined recoil and impact knocks him down. Really quite cool. And he's lying down facing the right of the truck, and we see them there. Right. Boom, boom. They're just going crazy. It's big CG scene. Pretty cool. Oh, the credits were the subtitles were just like stuck there, which is fine. VLC does that sometimes when you're frame by framing. Okay, and then right, it's just a scratch. Aha! So this guy, menacing. Eiji's freaking out. This guy is coming at him with a knife. You see the knife. We see Eiji. He's hesitating. The gun wavers. And then we see the shot. So we wonder for this split second, did Eiji actually do that? Wow. And then we see this. Eiji did not actually do that. Interesting tension build and then release. I quite like it. So they arrive. Right. And then, yeah. Here we go. Right. The river. The river. So. Ah, there we go. We can hear them both in that same scene. That's good attention to detail. Right. Smells. They're home free. It's none of your business. Oops. Wrong. It's my business. And then we get this scene with Dino's rage face. Yeah, I used that in my thumbnails. You can't normally see it because I'm over top of it because it's in the bottom right hand corner. But I just was like looking for a picture of Dino, and this was the coolest picture of Dino that I could find. And then we get the ED in an acoustic version over the top of this recovery scene. His hideout. So something interesting about this ED version, I can't tell what the string instrument is in the background, whether it is an acoustic guitar with steel strings and a bit of an effect applied to it digitally to make it tinny. It could be. And plucked with fingernails. It's definitely plucked with fingernails. But it doesn't sound like a guitar. It sounds tinnier. It sounds like a banjo or a mandolin. I'm really leaning toward mandolin. I mean, it could be an acoustic guitar with heavy steel strings that's being played really lightly and then distorted slightly, but I think it's a mandolin. Now, I expected at this point in the ED, because this is where it normally drops into the bassy rappy part. Like, I expected it to go full out on that. Stays acoustic. And this is just a gorgeous scene. Very much like the a scene from the OP. From death till morning. Alright, is there anything else that I wanted to talk about? Nah, I've covered everything now. So, great episode. Our whole gang is together. Shorter, Ash, Max, AG. Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that those four are our main group. And then bringing in Charlie and others when it's useful or necessary. They're all together. They're in Max's hideout. We have discovered that banana fish is the drug, which is cool. And again, so this is interesting. My recording for this discussion is longer than my previous recording for the reaction and the discussion combined. There was a lot to talk about in this one, and I got to go into it in more depth, and with being like fresh on it because I've seen it. So that was kind of cool, but it sucks that I can't put out the actual reaction the way that I wanted to. Very sorry. That will not happen again. I'm going to be really careful before I delete anything ever in the future. But, yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this for what it is. I'm sorry that the real reaction couldn't come out, but this is I think the best thing that I can do, to give you my opinion and my thoughts on it and the thoughts that I had to an extent while watching it. This is the best that I can do. So forgive me for my failings in deleting the files. Really fucked that up. And I hope you've enjoyed this as it is, as just a big ol' honkin' ol' almost hour long discussion on episode 5 of Banana Fish. I've been Teeaboo. This has been a re-recording for Banana Fish episode 5. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, and as always, I hope to catch you in the next one. Peace.